New York City, and that live shot will show you a picture of the Manhattan courthouse, where we understand the grand jury has been meeting. That same grand jury has voted to indict former President Donald Trump. I want to bring in CTV's Washington bureau chief, Joy Malbon, who's in D.C. for us. Hey, Joy, thanks for making the time. Tell us what you know.
Look, this is a remarkable moment. It is being reported and very likely true. But to have a former president indicted, I mean, we've never seen anything like this. This all stems from the hush money payment scheme. And there was a suggestion that, you know, on the scale of what Trump has been charged with, from the January 6th election interference to misuse of classified documents, that this was kind of small and insignificant. But the Manhattan grand jury has indicted Donald Trump for these hush money payments. What we don't know is what is in the sealed document. It is under seal, but he is, you know, could be charged for falsifying business records, which could be a felony or a misdemeanor. And Alvin Bragg, the district attorney, they have to show that Mr. Trump had an intent to defraud. And this all has to do with paying off a porn star, Stormy Daniels. We saw a parade of witnesses, including Michael Cohen, a former fixer who once said he would take a bullet for Donald Trump, testify that Donald Trump instructed him to pay off Stormy Daniels. So was this defrauding, falsifying business records, or does it get bumped up? We don't exactly know, because, of course, it is under seal. But the vote to indict is just a remarkable, remarkable moment in history.
And I want to emphasize, as you did, Joy, that this is the reporting from CNN and New York Times at this point. We haven't independently confirmed it. But if you could help remind our viewers that this was supposed to happen a few weeks ago. The president was himself putting out a note saying, hey, I'm about to get arrested. That day came and went, and then here we are a few weeks later.
Yeah, I mean, Donald Trump predicted that he would get arrested, and he was telling his legal team that he wants to be handcuffed. He wants people to see this. Now, he's under Secret Service detail, so there will be negotiations for him to surrender at some point to face these charges. There will be a mugshot. He'll be fingerprinted, and if he gets his wish, he wants to be paraded in public because, of course, politically, this is advantageous to him. He has called this political persecution from the get-go. And of course, you know, as some of these more serious charges are out there, this seems less significant, put it that way. But we still really don't know what Alvin Bragg, the district attorney, is going to say. It is interesting to note, though, that Alvin Bragg, I mean, a lot of people thought that this would be pushed off so a more serious case like the case of the classified documents could be looked at. But Alvin Bragg was threatened. He received death threats and even white powder. I mean, that's how politically charged all of this. But Donald Trump, he does hope to come in person and be fingerprinted, have that mugshot. And of course, you know, this will rile up his supporters. And that's why we saw such a big police presence, a type of circus outside the courthouse, because of the fear, of course, is Donald Trump has been demanding that his supporters protest, to get out there and you know, be angry and you know, kick up a storm should he be arrested. Now it does look like he's going to be indicted for this Stormy Daniels hush money affair.
Joy, I appreciate your insights so much. Thanks very much. I'm sure we'll have you back as soon as there's more details. CTV's Washington bureau chief, Joy Malbon, there. Let's bring back that picture, that live shot of what's happening in New York City, so everyone watching can get a glimpse themselves. What you're looking at is in Manhattan, the courthouse in which the grand jury has been meeting. And they have been meeting, as Joy pointed out, for weeks. According to the New York Times and CNN, they have voted to indict former President Donald Trump on charges related to hush money he paid, or his conduit paid, allegedly, to a porn star who goes by the name of Stormy Daniels, and the alleged cover-up that ensued. The front bench has been listening to all of this. Sabrina Grover, Melanie Paradis, Kathleen Monk, and Laura Stone are here. I think Joy brings up a great point around what this means politically going forward, because Donald Trump was telling his supporters this was going to happen for a reason, Kathleen.
He was telegraphing it. He was predicting it. And now the question that I have is, is how will he weaponize it? Will he weaponize this indictment and try to rally and mobilize his supporters? Will he try to get them to move? Listen, I was in New York a couple of weeks ago, and they were already bringing out the kind of barricades in the potential case that there were kind of some kind of protest when Mr. Trump was indicted. And it looks like if he is in fact indicted today, we'll have to watch for that. But the question that I'm also watching for is, will Trump weaponize this? How will his supporters react? The other thing I want to look at is, what do the Democrats do? Do they in fact just ignore it, downplay it, don't touch it? Or, do they try to say maybe Trump is who they now want to run against him? He's so tainted. He's so damaged by this, being the first president to ever be, or post-president to ever have been indicted in this way. Or do they, just try to walk away from it and just stay on those economic issues that we saw Biden pounding away so successfully at just last week when he was here in Ottawa? So I think that's the question. Those are the considerations. Obviously, I think it's a multi-partisan viewpoint to say that we hope that there's not riots or disruptions, of course, that result from this.
That's a great point. And I think also what's so interesting, Sabrina, is remember when Donald Trump was calling for his supporters to come and protest, and there were not many of them, right? Which was really interesting. And I wonder if that's that's going to be the case this time, or if because it's actually happened, the reaction could be different.
I want to, grab onto a word that Joy said, which is that this is a circus, and it continues to be a circus. And I think one of the things, aside from how the Democrats respond, I'm really interested to see how the Republicans respond. I think that there is a faction of the Republicans that continue to, including McCarthy, continue to hold Donald Trump on a pedestal, and they continue to support his actions. And they're not coming out and saying that this is not okay. I didn't hear any Republicans say anything about the call to protest, the call to arms that Donald Trump put out last week. So this, I think, is with every passing moment, it's really a question on where does the backbone lie in the Republican Party, and at what point are they going to say that enough is enough, and is it going to take another act of violence for that to happen?
I just want to let you know if you are. Yeah, go ahead, Melanie. I just want to quickly say that we just had some news on the wires that Donald Trump's lawyer says that she has been informed of the vote to indict, but is not sure when he will surrender. Of course, the reports coming out of the U.S. that the grand jury in Manhattan has voted to indict former President Donald Trump. Melanie, go for it.
Well, I can answer the question as to when. He'll surrender when there's a lot of photographers ready on standby for him to surrender in front of. We saw those ridiculous AI photos that people thought were real for a hot minute, and then realized they were computer-generated images of him being arrested. This will absolutely be a circus. To answer the smart questions that Kathleen raised, he will absolutely weaponize this. I don't know. Yeah. The real question is, will it work, right? I hope that the Democrats ignore this. I hope that they rise above and say nothing. I know that politically it's incredibly difficult to not take the bait on something like this, but Trump is going to use this for everything that's left in it. He's going to use this for his last chance to take the party back over again. And I hope that the Republican Party finds their backbone again, because they've lost it.
I think that your co-panelists, Laura, have hit the nail on the head. Really, this is all about to what degree, not to what degree, when he weaponizes it, to what degree does the party coalesce around it, who ends up coalescing around him, and what does it mean for the greater kind of political context in the United States? What are you watching for this evening, Laura?
Well, absolutely. I don't think anyone's going to ignore this. I don't think we're going to see, Republicans or Democrats sort of step back and hold their tongue. I don't think that's really possible in such an extraordinary circumstance like this. I mean, look, we all saw what happened on January 6th, and we don't want something like that to happen again. So I echo the remarks from my colleagues of I'm watching to see who comes out, if there's violence and kind of the results of this, or as you mentioned, Vashi, has the moment passed. But this is obviously remarkable. And we know that there are still people out there who fervently support Donald Trump. and how they react to that, everyday Americans, is going to be fascinating to watch.
Okay, thanks everyone. Thanks so much to our front bench for joining us during this breaking news and also our previous discussion. Laura Stone, Melanie Paradis, Sabrina Grover, and Kathleen Monk. If you are just looking at the screen right now, you will see a live shot in Manhattan over the courthouse where a grand jury has been convening for a number of weeks, examining evidence, interviewing witnesses, ultimately to decide if they will vote to indict former U.S. President Donald Trump. They have, according to both CNN and the New York Times, decided to do that today. They have voted to indict the former president, the first such time that has happened for a former or sitting president. Donald Trump's lawyer has just released a statement saying that she was informed of the vote to indict him, but she is unsure of when the former president will surrender. We will, of course, stay on top of any details we get in that vein and bring them to you as they become available. You heard my colleague Joy Melvin also tell us about how a few weeks ago Donald Trump was the first person to say or predict that this would happen. His timing was very much off. He had predicted that he would be arrested Tuesday a few weeks ago. Of course, that time came and went. However, it sounds like, according to the New York Times and CNN, that the vote has happened and he will be indicted. We're going to stay on top of everything, as I said, bring you the details as they come. The debate with Michael Couture is up next. Have a great night.